So I came across a video a few weeks back regarding the Costa Concordia incident that's been all over the news for a short time. It's a pretty sad state of affairs, of course. A captain who took his ship off of its charted course and into unsafe territories that were far too close to the shoreline. When it went horribly wrong and the ship ran aground some rocks and started to sink, the captain was one of the first people off of the ship, abandoning his post and leaving many people still aboard. Maritime regulations for almost every navy, marine and civilian seagoing organisation prohibit the kind of behaviour that this captain is alleged to have done. Despite being ordered back on ship by the coordinator who took over the rescue effort after the captain abandoned his post, he remained off the ship and in the lifeboat. The courts of course will deal with his dereliction of duty in their own way, and so I'll comment no further on this particular issue. What I did want to comment on was a series of absolutely ludicrous comments. These kinds of videos usually do attract all kinds of morons out of the woodwork, including such people as those who say the captain is a hero for saving people's lives by running the ship aground so close to the shore, despite the fact that the ship should never have been near the coast to begin with, and had it not been, it would never have gotten damaged the way it did. But one of the most egregious was this comment. Or perhaps the passengers should take some responsibility for choosing their ship and captain. This is a classic education versus legislation issue. So obviously this video attracts libertarians and randroids too. I've no idea why. This is an issue of ship safety, which is something that needs to be enforced by all maritime organisations, and usually is. For someone to come along and turn it into a government legislation issue was bizarre to say the least. I decided to correct him on something. How the hell are passengers supposed to know if this extremely expensive luxury cruise liner, for which many exist with perfectly competent captains, was going to have a captain who was a complete tool? Responsibility for something they had no possible way of knowing? And this is the point. How could they have known? If the captain was gung-ho and irresponsible, he's hardly going to advertise the fact to people if he can possibly get away with it, since it would ruin his career. And since people generally tend to try hiding their own lack of competence in a given skill or discipline, members of the public will not have an easy time finding out about it. And why the hell should the onus be placed on them to find out in such a haphazard manner? Placing blame on the passengers because the captain of a ship turns out to be a complete toolbox is pretty disgusting, actually. But this isn't surprising coming from someone who thinks that education versus legislation is what's the issue here. Strangely, he came back to me with this little gem. Do you think it's really that hard to look up safety records? Since 1998, which is 14 years ago, just for your information, there have been at least 10 major fires on Carnival cruise ships. It took me 5 minutes to look that up, and I'm not even going on a cruise. But the actual safety records are irrelevant here. I had to laugh at this statement. The problem is, if you look to the government to do everything for you, you will end up with no personal freedoms. Wait a minute. Since when did we change the subject from one of an incompetent captain aboard a prestigious cruise liner running aground in waters he had no business being in, to one of government legislating everything in our lives? I mean, really, what kind of idiocy was this? But anyway, I responded by pointing out to him that 10 major fires over a 14-year time span was not exactly an abysmal safety record, given the fact that there are many hundreds, possibly thousands of cruise ships operating at any given time across hundreds of cruise line operators. Also, the fact that any shipping accident such as this one becomes headline news across the majority of the Western world is a testament to the fact that this sort of thing doesn't happen every day. I then pointed out that he was changing the subject by going off on a tangent about government legislation. The problem is that it's not a government legislation issue to begin with. It's a safety record issue, one for which the members of the public are not expected to have to vet and interview every single captain of every single ship they wish to take a cruise on. It's down to those people they hand over their hard-earned money to make sure they meet safety standards. In that respect, the onus is on the cruise line operators and the captain to uphold the safety standards that have been set by the port authorities and the maritime organisations that determine what is safe within the realms of seabound navigation. His response was rather pathetic, actually. Hardly worth responding to, but I did anyway by telling him he's not worth my time, in not so many words. he came back with this ludicrous piece of comment, to which I responded as follows. To his comment regarding talking about people doing for themselves instead of expecting the government to do for them, I responded by pointing out that this was off topic. Aside from anything else, it's hardly likely that Carnival Cruises, the owner of the Costa line of ships and the subsidiary operator of those ships, will have an abysmal record of service given firstly how long they've been operating and how little press they've gotten in the news regarding their safety record. To his comment accusing me of changing the subject, I responded by acknowledging that yes, I changed the subject back to one that he should have been discussing in the first place. The expectation of passengers to have a safe cruise with a captain who knew what the hell he was doing. To his accusation that I was ridiculing him by stating he was being disingenuous, I stated that his tactics are disingenuous. I mean, making an appeal to ridicule regarding coffee drinking and getting sidetracked when he was the one that was changing the subject and not actually addressing the points I raised is rather pathetic and laughable. People who generally engage in this intellectually vacuous behaviour have no case to present. But again, what is ridiculing about pointing out when someone is being disingenuous? And making an appeal to ridicule is what he did, not me. To his comment about getting off of my high horse, well, that's funny coming from a guy who resorted to childish behaviour in response to points I raised that demonstrated he didn't have the first bloody clue what he was talking about. I pointed out that this was an act of projection on his part, especially as he was accusing me of projecting onto him, which anyone can see from these comments is not the case. To reiterate, it's egregious to state that it is the passenger's responsibility for choosing the ship and captain they did when you think that the vast majority of people are not expected to know how to navigate a ship across the sea. It is a skill set that takes time, effort, aptitude and money to develop. It's not the responsibility of paying customers to become sailors just so they can decide which ship is safest. It is especially disingenuous to make the statement that passengers had a responsibility to choose their ship and captain when often they have no choice in the matter, especially when oftentimes only one ship might be operating at the times and destinations they wish to go on. The entire line of reasoning from this guy is ridiculous, and I told him this. His response was to cry foul, a cry which is false. Now it's possible he might come back with more nonsense, at which point we can all have a good chuckle at the suggestions he makes when he makes them. Now why is it that people like this want to spread their anti-government propagandizing on videos that don't even have anything to do with governments in the first place? I mean, this video didn't have anything to do with government other than the regulations set down by government-associated naval forces whose sole responsibility is to ensure the safety and security of ships at sea, near or within their jurisdiction. I'm inspired to do a video on why regulating certain activities is important, and this entire discussion with this individual is a case for why it is necessary, especially given his egregious remarks. Thank you for your time.